Hey there, welcome to another episode of Cooking with Violet Vixen. This afternoon we are cooking prawn and asparagus risotto. This will serve four. Now, for anyone that's made risotto, they will realise, yes, while it does take a long time to cook and there's so many different variations, it is a really tasty dish. So I do love risotto. I normally will try and do it when I've got a bit more time. Today I'm a bit with time. We'll see how I go. But I'm not going to push myself because you can't hurry risotto. It cooks when it's ready. So go risotto. Apart from these ingredients, which I will talk you through soon, put that over there. You are also going to need 2 saucepans. One will be for your stock, which we bring to the boil and we keep bubbling away. The other one is going to be what we are going to finish cooking the risotto in. So everything else goes into the risotto. We add the stock as it goes. For you that have always been scared of risotto, don't be scared of it. It's just basically a one pan dish, I should say, which takes a bit of time. But the fact that you've got your rice and whatever else you want to put in with it. As you saw from the description, this one's got asparagus and prawns as the stars of the show. So yeah, and then obviously your rice. But you will also need 3 utensils, a stirring stick for the saucepan, the ever important ladle for measuring the stock as we go, and a slotted spoon because we are actually going to cook the asparagus in the stock and then remove it. So the asparagus is already going to have the feels of the stock before we put it into the risotto at the end. Anyway, enough about that. Let's go do the ingredients. Okay, so you will need 1.2 litres of vegetable stock. I've just made it up with the stock powder and water. 375 grams of fresh asparagus spears, trimmed and cut into 5 centimetre lengths. Now, I ordered a bunch of asparagus, and silly me, because I've been cooking long enough to know that a bunch of asparagus normally doesn't have much in it. For those of you that are wondering, my one bunch that arrived was 125 grams. So yesterday I had to make a dash into Coles and buy another 2 bunches, which was very annoying because I could have just got 3 bunches done at the end. So I have learnt, hopefully, a lesson that is not to order asparagus by the bunch, but by the weight I need. That's a me problem. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 onion, which we're finely chopping. That's gone into 2, so that's a pretty big onion. A clove of garlic, which I finely chopped. 350 grams of arborio rice. Now, arborio rice is the special rice that is used for risotto. You can find that anywhere. 450 grams of raw jumbo prawns, peeled and deveined. If you can buy them fresh, then go for it. I've just brought the bag from Aldi, which is 500 grams. No, I'm not going to leave 50 grams in the freezer. I'm going to use more prawns because they're pretty awesome, they are. They're already peeled. They're not cooked, and hopefully they've been deveined. Who knows? 2 tablespoons of olive tapenade. Now, I went to Woolworths for the second lot of ingredients. Could not find olive tapenade. Woolworths have now brought in the fancy food section, and I say fancy like fancy pants. I may never use olive tapenade again. I found some fancy tapenade, which was about $10 for a jar, which had a hint of chili in it, which was going to alter the recipe that I wanted anyway. So thanks Google, I love you. Got out little Google because I couldn't find anything else and said, "Hey Google, what can I use instead of olive tapenade?" It suggested that while I wouldn't get the same taste that I want, near enough is good enough. I have just gone with olive dip. So I think you need that in there because I think from memory, olive tapenade is basically like chopped olives, or maybe just sort of. I think I've seen recipes for it. So you want that olive taste in there. So I wouldn't say don't put it in at all. Um, Probably my next choice would have been over dip, would have been to just chop olives up really small. But I've gone with the olive dip anyway, because I can have that later with some chips. So the rest of the dip won't go to waste. Whereas olive tapenade, I would probably be adding it to the collection of jars in the fridge, going, what can I do with that? Oh, nothing. Okay. So, long story short, 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh basil. I had that in the freezer. I've just grabbed out a handful and chopped it up. Salt and pepper, very important ingredients for flavouring, as much or as little as you want. There's no right or wrong amount. And finally, Parmesan cheese for the top. Once again, with that, no right or wrong amount. You can put in just a little bit. You can go to town, put in a whole cup, whatever you want. But I've just grabbed out a small handful. Or if you don't want to, you don't have to put it in at all. Okay, so it is a very extensive list. It is from my little Italian book, which I'm finding really interesting for different Italian recipes. As you may know from going back through some of the previous episodes, they have all been predominantly pasta dishes. So pasta is good for me at the moment because I'm training more at the gym and trying to work out a lot more. So I find that pasta is actually fueling me more. But I'm sort of getting also to the stage where I'm going, I love pasta. It's pretty cheap to cook, but let's have a variation. So this actually did end up being quite an expensive exercise because the prawns and the asparagus themselves were quite a lot of money. But the fact that I can say it serves 4, so this will do me for four nights, in which case it will freeze well. So I look at it that way and I go, okay, that's fine. It's probably going to work out about, say, $7 a serve. I don't know, because most of the ingredients I already had anyway. The main outlay was the prawns and the asparagus. So if you can get asparagus cheap and prawns cheap, then obviously your costing is going to come down. And that tapenade, if I had brought that $10 jar, that would have really shot the price up. But anyway, that is a little bit of a very long intro, and we're just going to go straight into it. So first of all, we're going to get the small saucepan going with our 1.2 litres of vegetable stock. And once we get that boiling, we are going to put the asparagus in. So let's go. So I've popped the asparagus. Could call it asparagus cooking water if you want to be really exact about it. The vegetable stock is in this one here. So while we're waiting for that to come to the boil, we're not just going to stand there and watch it, because there is a proverb that goes, "A watched pot never boils." That can go for anything that you're trying to make boil. So one way to make it boil quicker also is to put a lid on it. So we are going to get started on what's going in the saucepan next to it, the one that's looking all lonely. And then we can bring this together a little bit quicker than we're planning to. So let's go see what we need. So I have read my recipe, but I always like to keep going back to it. So first of all, we are going to add our 2 tablespoons of olive oil. and bring over our onion because we're going to put that straight in. So when I chopped up my onion, I always ask for a small onion because it sounds sarcastic, but every time I ask for a small onion, I always get a bigger onion. And if I ask for like a medium onion, I'll get a large onion. And I do like onion, but I don't like them too big. Like with this one, if I could go to the supermarket and choose one out, or the grocers myself, I would go for a smaller variation on an onion because I just want that oniony taste. I don't want to be eating the onion. The onion's not the star of a show, it's just a flavour. So we're going to give this a bit of a stir. So we're currently multitasking now. And what we need is basically we're bringing our stock to the boil. We're going to add our asparagus and cook that for 3 minutes. And then we're going to remove it with the slotted spoon. And we are going to cook our onion for 5 minutes. And then we're going to add the garlic. So I am going to get a colander and drain our asparagus so we're ready to roll. Once you hear the onion starting to frizzle, turn it down to medium heat. And I just read a tip on my recipe that said once the asparagus is done to drain it and then to keep the water. Well, yes, you can do it that way, but at the end of the day, I think it's just easier to remove it with a slotted spoon because that way we're keeping the stock on the boil because you've got to return the stock back to the stove top anyway to boil. So there's no point in taking it off to put it back on again. You're better off just taking out what you don't need. But that's my way of thinking though. So a little bit longer and then we'll be ready to put the garlic in. So you don't want your onion super brown, you just want it to be starting to soften. Like that. So that's starting to come to the boil very slowly and the onions turning to that nice colour. So I'm very happy with the onion. So I'm going to put the garlic in and we're nearly ready to add the asparagus. So now that we're happy with how our garlic and onion is, and you'll start to smell the garlic more so than the onion, you can turn that down to about 2, which is not quite low, but somewhere between low and medium. My stovetop goes from 1 to 6, so that's how I sort of work it out. We're going to add the rice, which if you have a look at a grain of rice, you probably won't see it if I do it this way. But if you have a look at your grains of rice, they're like a translucent colour. You want them to go, you'll know, they sort of go a different colour. Translucent, I think they actually call it. So you'll be able to see through it. Once they go to that, that is when we're ready to start adding the stock. However, the stock is still waiting for the asparagus. So sometimes this multitasking catches up with you in one stage or another. So we've sort of got to back off from doing the onion because we're doing the other thing. But there is a way around it. I will get some stock out of that. Don't you worry. All right, so in goes our rice. And you'll see the colour of it now. And in 2 minutes, you will see a different colour. So you just want to stir it and basically cover it in oil. Now, the funny thing is there isn't really any oil in here for it to cover it. So you're more or less just covering it in onion, I guess, and garlic. And what I would do at this time is turn it down to the very low temperature of 1. So that we're not really doing much damage. We don't want to burn the bottom. Just keep flicking it around. I wish that stock would boil, but I'm watching it, so it won't. All right. Don't be tempted to put the asparagus in early, by the way. Done that a couple of times, and your asparagus doesn't cook. So the whole idea is that the asparagus is supposedly going to cook in 3 minutes, but this is not really going to happen in this case because we're putting it back in later. So at worst, you just lift this one off, leave it on a very low heat so that the hot plate doesn't go super cold. But that is fine. Okay. I'm happy enough to put the asparagus in now. So what I'm going to do is put my timer on for 3 minutes. It'll probably not buzz because I've asked it to buzz. So that's our asparagus all cut up. Okay. So the jug that we had it in, what we're going to do is we're going to have this ready so that we can put it back into that once it's done. 3 minutes, we're lifting that out. And then we can start and put it back into there. Now, I suppose why they say to strain it is in case some of the top of the asparagus spears comes off. Look, if you're going to add it, I wouldn't worry too much about it. If a piece of asparagus gets in here or there, it's going to end up in there eventually anyway, so it's not too bad. All right. So 3 minutes and we're ready to really risotto. Okay, our 3 minutes is up. Grab that jug back. Grab that spoon that I told you about with the holes in it. If you do not have a spoon with the holes in it, this is called a slotted spoon, by the way. Do what it's said to do, but make sure that you don't throw that stock out, okay? You'll have to drain it over a bowl so that you can keep the stock. So to me, it's just easier to do it this way because probably the main bowl that I'm going to use is already busy keeping the prawns happy. The prawns are happy, obviously. Now I can't see. I knew there was one little straggler. All right, so that's what our asparagus looks like. Thank you, Mr. Slotted Spoon. You've been awesome. Let's risotto. Okay, back on the stove top, up to 2. Grab your ladle. Now what we do is we do 1 ladle full at a time. Risotto is cooked using the absorption method, which is exactly that. 1 minute you see a ladle full of stock, the next minute it's all gone. And you literally keep doing that. It's probably going to take you about 20 minutes to do 1 at a time. So I'll check back in with you when we're ready to do the last lot because we need to add some more ingredients. Just a little tip, because these two fit so well together, my saucepan with the stock is higher than the other one. Put them side by side so that way when you're carrying your ladle over, any spills will go straight in. All right, that's my handy hint of the day. Okay, so when it's looking like this and we're about to add the last ladleful, we add the last ladleful and then we're going to add the prawns and the asparagus in. So let's go. So very important that you don't use a small saucepan because right now, while the prawns are still big and about to cook, we're a bit filled up. Now, as you're cooking these prawns, while they're raw, they are going to be obviously a grey colour, but when they're cooked, and you can start to see with the tails now, when they're cooked, they will be a full red colour or a pinky, orangey colour, whatever colour prawns are. So it's important that we make sure that they are fully cooked through, obviously. Don't want to get any food poisoning. Now I have just a tiny little bit of stock left in our pot, which I'm going to put straight on top. It's very deceiving when you think, oh yeah, there goes the last ladle. No, it actually wasn't. There was one more ladle after I said to you, that's the last ladle. So I didn't lie. I just assumed. So once all the stock is absorbed, we're then going to lift it off and take it over to the other side of the kitchen. And that is when we're going to add the tapenade / paste, dip, onion, olive dip, and our salt and pepper, our basil, and get ready to serve. So when I cook risotto, I always like to leave a little bit of liquid in it so that it doesn't dry out. And my theory is it's still cooking. So what you're really looking for is the majority of the liquid gone. But most importantly, remember those raw prawns that we had back at the beginning? Well, they need to look like that. So they're cooked. So once your prawns are cooked, your asparagus should be cooked enough. Now, once again, if you are freezing these portions, you don't really want it fully cooked anyway, because obviously when you recook it, it's still cooking. So now that we've got that done, that didn't take too long. That was good. We are going to add stir in the olive paste, which, as we discussed at the beginning, is actually olive dip. I feel weird adding dip into it, but I think this is going to add a little bit of creaminess to it as well. So for me, I don't think that's a bad idea. It's very olivey, that dip. Now season it to taste with salt and pepper, and to do that is exactly what I say. If you don't want a lot of salt in it, don't put a lot of salt in it. If you want a lot of pepper, I am a fan of pepper, so I'm very happy to put a lot of pepper into this one. Beautiful. All right, and then I'm just going to put a crack of salt in it. Okay. All we need to do now is just put our basil in. Mine's frozen, so I'm more than happy to have it stirred through. When you dish it up, you can put a little bit of basil on the top if you wish. My basil plant is dead. I would not want to put those leaves on top. I've actually got to remove all my herb plants from my windowsill because they're all officially gone. And I'll just wait until I need them again before I try it again. I sometimes have success with them and I sometimes don't. I don't have a very good green thumb, unfortunately. One thing I did not inherit. Parmesan cheese, pop on top. I'm actually going to stir mine in because it's going to get dished up anyway. Doesn't really matter. All right. So, grab 4 plates. I'd probably serve it up in a bowl. I am going to serve mine up in a bowl. Really, really good meal. All right. Thank you for watching this episode of Cooking with Violet Vixen. This has been prawn and asparagus risotto. How good does that look? All right. I'll catch you on the next adventure.